So, do you want to learn the best ways for learning English by yourself? If so, this video is for you because today I'm going to teach you 10 tips. Yes, you heard me right. 10 tips that you can use to learn English from the comfort of your own home. So let's get into it. And my first tip is know your why. You need to figure out why you want to improve your English. This could be because it's the language of global communications, and learning English opens up so many opportunities to speak to people from different parts of the planet aren't available in any other language. Or it could be for amazing job opportunities and higher paying jobs in your country, or for education and wanting to apply at a prestigious university that requires a certain level of English. Or it could be for travel, to speak to locals in many tourist areas who often have a high or decent level of English. So there are plenty of reasons why you want to learn English. So it's time for you to get clear on your why. What I want you to do is to pause the video and find a piece of paper or download a note-taking app on your phone, and then write your why down and put it somewhere that you can see. So it could be the background on your phone, or you could put it up on the wall somewhere you can always see it, and remind yourself why you started this journey in the first place. This is especially important in times, and there will be times, when you're starting to lose motivation or feeling really frustrated at your progress and feeling like you want to give up. And it's in those moments that having that why will really help you in those difficult times and serve as a renewed motivation towards achieving your goal. My next tip is to set realistic goals for yourself. When starting something new, especially learning something new, it's extremely important to be realistic with how much time and effort you can put into studying it and improving it. And this is especially true with language learning. You really need to know your time limitation and how much time you can actually spend learning English. If you have a full-time job, or if you're studying, or maybe you have a family that you need to take care of, and you have so many other things that you need to do, you probably won't have a lot of time to spend learning English. So what you really need to do is to recognize how much time you can actually spend and dedicate to learning it. And this is especially important to stopping you from feeling down or sad when your schedule doesn't allow you to do something in English for several days. So it's really important to be really honest with yourself and how much free time you actually have for studying. If you want to learn English quickly and you tell yourself that, oh, I want to study English every day and do it for 3-4 hours every day, for some people that's possible, especially if they're working part-time or don't have a job. However, for a lot of us, dedicating maybe an hour is really pushing the amount of free time you have, if they're lucky. So you need to be realistic. What I recommend you do is to build a schedule and really think about which ways would be great for you to learn English. Now, a lot of people say, I want to be fluent in English. However, have you thought about what it actually means to be fluent? It's very objective, and the definition changes from person to person. So before you decide on really working on your English, you need to find something specific that works for your goal. A great way to measure your progress could be understanding your proficiency level. Are you a beginner at A1 or A2? Maybe an intermediate, so B1 or B2, or an advanced learner, so C1 or C2. Assessing your starting point will really help you set achievable goals. For example, if you have an A2 level, then maybe you want to set a goal becoming B1. And the next step could be to take a mock B1 exam online and then figure out which parts of your English you need to improve. But the most important part is that it needs to be achievable and realistic for you. There are lots of people online and on YouTube who say that you can learn a language in 1 or 3 months. Of course, it's possible if your native language is very similar to your target language. However, you still need to be realistic when it comes to your goals and not compare yourself to other people. Maybe they have a lot of free time to spend improving your English, or maybe their native language is very similar to English. So don't measure your progress with other people. Be realistic with the amount of time that you can spend learning the language and really try to incorporate English into your busy schedule. And my next tip is daily habit. Making something a daily habit is extremely important for learning anything, but this is especially true for language learning. I know for a lot of people, making something like learning English a daily habit can be very difficult and tricky, especially at the beginning when you're struggling to manage English with your daily responsibility. My recommendation for making English a daily habit isn't to start by forcing yourself to study English for an hour or 2 hours every day. Instead, what I want you to do is to start slowly, maybe 5 or 10 minutes at first, and then slowly start to build it up. While everyone's busy, we also all have dead time. That is time where we're not doing anything particularly productive or useful. For example, instead of scrolling social media in your native language, you can follow English speaking influencers instead and really start to expose yourself to English. Another thing is you don't need to block it in large periods of time. For example, from 2 to 3 in the afternoon every day studying English. Instead, try and spread out in the morning, afternoon, evening in smaller periods of time. For example, maybe 10-15 minutes, and naturally incorporate it into your routine. I know for a lot of us, not blocking large periods of time doesn't feel like studying. However, by dividing the hour you want to spend studying English into smaller, more manageable pieces of time, will allow you to be more consistent and slowly start to integrate English into your daily routine. At first, you really want to start slow, particularly in the first 90 days when you're really starting to build the habit. Start with just 5 minutes in the morning reading the news in English or watching a 5-minute video. Then the next day, try and increase it to 10 minutes, and eventually it will feel extremely natural to do something in English every single day. And this is great because in the morning, instead of dreading the fact that you're going to try and have to manage to study English, instead it'll be extremely natural that at a certain period of the day you'll spend studying English and then go back to your normal routine and do it again. Once you've made English an important part of your daily routine, you'll be amazed at how easy it is when you wake up in the morning and you think you'll need to spend X number of minutes or X number of hours studying. And you're going to be totally fine with it because it's going to be just like brushing your teeth, walking your dog, or watching something on YouTube and Netflix. It will be something that you've done every single day and therefore completely natural and easy for you to do. And you'll be surprised at just how much progress you'll make by making English an important part of your daily routine. My next tip is work on your vocabulary. This is especially important if you don't have a very high level of English. Then you really need to focus on building your vocabulary as fast as possible. And in particular, using useful vocabulary that you can use in daily conversation. Most people learn a language in order to communicate with others, which requires you to quickly build a large vocabulary. However, another important reason why you need to quickly improve your vocabulary is that the more words you know and the more you understand, the faster you will improve in English with less effort. Let me say that again. The bigger your vocabulary is, the easier it will be to improve your English with less effort. That's because as your vocabulary builds, you'll be able to understand words just through the context. This is something that native speakers are able to do, and you've probably done when you've come across a word that you didn't understand in your native language. And this is a sort of cheat code to quickly improving your vocabulary. But how can you achieve this? What you really want to do is to expose yourself to as much English as possible. Why? When you're constantly exposing yourself in English, you'll see words over and over and over again. And naturally, you'll start to remember these words, and more importantly for you and communicating in English, you'll learn how to naturally use them in your own conversations through immersion. This is exactly how native speakers learn their native languages, by constantly hearing the people around them speak all the time and gradually acquiring the language. And this is what you need to do in English. Not only will you remember words easier, but it also has the added benefit of allowing your brain to naturally acquire how to use these new words naturally in English and avoid sounding weird or strange by using the wrong word in the wrong context. Things you can do to quickly improve your vocabulary are, from reading a lot and saving unknown words, watching videos or films or TV shows, and listening to people talk on podcasts or interviews. If you want to speed up the process faster, whenever you hear a word that you want to use in the future, you can save that word and use a flashcard app like Anki to practice remembering them. All these things will help you remember words faster and allow you to use them as though you were a native speaker. Before I get back to the video, but really quickly guys, if you're enjoying this content and want to implement it in your own life with my help, then consider applying to work with me personally inside of my new coaching program. Link in the description and first pinned comment. Click the link in the description and fill out a quick application, and then you can book a time and day to have a free consultation call with either me or a member of my team to see how I can help you. So click the link in the description or first pinned comment to see whether we can work together to improving your English and help you go from frustrated and limited to fully confident and fluent in English. Now with that out of the way, let's get back to the video. My next tip is to watch original content in English. As I've already mentioned in a previous tip, consuming a lot of content in English will greatly improve your English and allow you to sound more natural as your brain acquires how to use specific words correctly in English. So if you love movies or podcasts or TV shows, then you should definitely start focusing on watching more of them in English, particularly if you watch them in your native language. If you're interested in acquiring slang and more colloquial everyday English, then a great resource you can use are vlogs you can find on YouTube. Either daily vlogs or travel vlogs, anything that you find interesting. If you have trouble understanding them, then you can turn down the speed of the video from 1 to 0.5 or 2.5, or you can use subtitles to follow along. I really love vlogs as listening practice because unlike TV shows and a lot of videos, a lot of what the person is saying is unscripted and uncut. Therefore, they're more likely to use more informal language and everyday English that native speakers use, instead of what you'll hear in a TV show or a film. But the most important thing you need to remember is that you need to watch a lot of it, not just 30 minutes or 40 minutes, maybe an hour, 2, 3 hours. The more the better. The more content you listen to, the faster your progress will be. And I know this from personal experience. When I was learning French the traditional way, I didn't listen a lot, and therefore I had a lot of trouble understanding French native speakers. Back then I would watch maybe 5 or 10 minute videos thinking that it will be enough to start understanding French native speakers. It was only when I had a period of bad health and I spent many hours watching content only in French, and by many hours I'm talking 6, 7, 8 hours of being immersed in French, am I now able to understand most French native speakers quite easily. And while my spoken French still needs work, I can now easily consume content in French and don't have the same fear of starting to speak to a native speaker and then being completely lost when they say something back. Have there ever been times that you struggled to remember a new word you've been learning? Have you ever spent hours trying to memorize a list of vocab and then completely forget it? Maybe you've even tried flashcards and they still haven't helped. Well, flashcards are very useful for remembering new words alone, without additional immersion in English and building upon the words that you're learning in your flashcard deck. They aren't that useful. Therefore, my next tip is to read, watch, listen as much as possible in English, not only for your entertainment, but in order to remember new words in English. The biggest issue relying only on flashcards, and why so many people forget the words in their flashcard deck after they've stopped using them, is that they are not continuing to be exposed to those words in the wild, so to speak. That is, they're not repeatedly seeing these words in YouTube videos or in books or in films that they are watching or listening or reading to. When learning our native language as children, we spend all day listening to our parents, brothers, cousins, family members, all of them speaking to us or speaking to people around us. And while they're doing this, we're naturally acquiring words, and our brains naturally started to recognize specific grammatical patterns that are used in your native language. And that's what you need to replicate in English. Just by hearing English being spoken a lot, will your brain naturally start to recognize new words or words that you've previously learned and forgotten, and more importantly, grammatical patterns and phrases that are often used by native speakers. According to studies, you only need to see or hear a word between 8 to 17 times in order to remember it. Therefore, you need to replicate what you did to learn your native language by listening, reading, and being exposed to English as much as possible. For a lot of you who don't live in an English-speaking country, this can be achieved by watching videos, listening to podcasts as much as possible. And slowly but surely, you'll see progress with your English. And my next tip is to talk to yourself and the things around you. So many of my students often tell me that the reason they can't speak English is because they have no one to practice with. Certainly, having someone to practice speaking English with is a really great help with your English and increasing your motivation to continue learning and improving it. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll automatically be able to speak English. In fact, you might spend more of that time constantly trying to translate things from your native language into English instead of actually practicing the language. Something that I like to call the translation trap. So, before you start speaking to other people, and especially if you're someone who's more introverted or shy, or just don't feel ready yet to start speaking English to another person, talking to yourself and objects around you is a really great way to get some speaking practice in, so you'll have things to say when you eventually speak English to someone else. When you're practicing speaking to yourself, what I want you to do is imagine that you're speaking really great English with a perfect English accent. This is a really great way to increase your confidence when you speak English to someone else. Speaking by yourself and really working the muscles in your mouth will really help improve your accent, but more importantly, not make you feel stupid practicing your accent in front of someone else. Instead, you'll be able to do it judgment-free without worrying that the person who's listening to you will think that you sound stupid, constantly trying to pronounce words, sounds, phrases in English. When speaking to yourself or to objects around you, you can talk about your day, or about a movie you've watched, or a book you're reading, or even you can narrate what you're doing right now. For example, if you're watching a YouTube video, then after the video, you can talk about what happened in that video in English. This is a great way to immediately notice any words that you're missing, and you'll be able to use tools like Google Translate to find those words and include them in your vocabulary. If you're struggling with inspiration about what to talk about, you can just find prompts online or use tools like ChatGPT and ask them to find prompts that you can talk about. Doing this will really improve your confidence when you speak English to someone else, and also really find those missing gaps in your vocabulary that will stop you from falling into the translation trap. And my next tip is to build a library of stories of your life. In our native languages, when we meet someone new, we're often telling stories about ourselves. This could be about our childhood, about our culture, our experiences, or just what we did that day. And this is what you need to do in English. You need to practice the same stories that you would tell in your native language, but in English. This method is a really great way of always having something to say when you're talking to a new person or making new friends. What you need to do is to record yourself telling these stories in English. Whenever there's a word or a phrase or a sentence that you don't know how to say in English, write it down or say it in your native language. And then once you finish telling the story, find those missing parts of your vocabulary and use a tool like Google Translate or online dictionary to find the correct translations of what you want to say. Then keep practicing the story, saying it over and over again, really focusing on the fluency of what you're saying, on improving your pronunciation on any words or sounds that you have trouble saying. Really focus on the way you say it. So pretend that you're a native speaker talking to another native speaker. Really work on trying to say it as naturally and smoothly as possible. Keep doing this every day for about 1 or 2 weeks until you can say the story perfectly, as though you were a native English speaker. Then move on to the next story. The types of stories you want to focus on are ones that are either really important to the person that you are, or stories that you often tell in your native language. Doing this will really allow you to connect to the person you're speaking with or to a native speaker on a deeper level by really explaining through these stories what made you the person you are today, and really personalizing yourself in a way that you can't do if you don't know how to properly articulate these experiences that you've had. But best of all, you'll have memorized phrases and words that you can easily bring up whenever you're struggling with what to say next. You're not gonna like my next. What I want you to do is record yourself and then listen. Okay, I know it's awful to listen to the sound of your own voice. I know this personally, as I hate hearing the sound of my own voice, and it's so hard to listen to yourself struggle in a foreign language, forgetting words, making a ton of grammatical mistakes, struggling to pronounce things that ordinarily you can. However, as uncomfortable and awkward it might be to listen to your own voice, it is an essential practice and is extremely important that you start doing. Even if you're a beginner or still lack confidence speaking English. Yes, I know it's extremely intimidating to start speaking into a camera or into your phone, and you don't need to do a whole speech or a long 15-minute voice recording of you talking about what's happening in the world. Instead, begin gradually. You can start by shadowing, which involves listening to a video or a podcast, then repeating what you hear as close as possible to the native speaker you're copying. This technique not only hones your listening and speaking skills, but also develops the muscles in your mouth that you need in order to improve your fluency and your pronunciation in English. Once you've shadowed a few times, try and then speak about what you have been shadowing and record yourself. Then listen to it and try and compare it towards the original. Really make note of any mistakes you've made or anything that you mispronounced or you couldn't understand, and spend time on really ironing out and removing those mistakes. Another useful exercise is to record yourself reading out loud, either something that you wrote or something that someone else wrote. At first you can read it out loud and then use tools like Google Translate to help you pronounce any words that you're not sure how they are correctly said. Then what I want you to do is to record yourself reading that same passage out loud and then listen to it over again in order to notice any pronunciation mistakes you're making or reading out loud. Finally, once you feel confident enough and less awkward about hearing your own voice, I want you to speak about a topic out loud and record yourself talking about it. Once you've done that, really try to notice any mistakes that you make while speaking English and try and perfect them. Really compare your pronunciation to how a native speaker says it, and then use shadowing to really iron out those pronunciation mistakes. Although it will be awkward at the beginning, I promise you, doing this will really improve your speaking abilities as you'll become more fluent when talking in English because you don't actually have to think about what you're going to say. The muscles in your mouth and your brain already has the practice of talking in English beforehand. So when you do speak English, it will be a lot easier, smoother, and I promise you, you'll really feel the benefit of pushing through the awkwardness. My next tip is enjoy the process. What I really want you to do is have fun and enjoy the process and really try and enjoy your journey learning and improving your English. Yes, there will be times where you're frustrated or not seeing the same progress as you used to. So it's in these moments that really enjoying the process of learning and developing your English skills will stop you from giving up and never touching English again. So it's really important to remember that if you're not having fun with it, you won't keep learning English in the long run. So it's really important important to really have fun with the experience of learning a foreign language, particularly if it's the first language that you're learning. And keeping in mind that although there'll be difficult moments with your English journey, that's all it is, a journey where you're constantly moving forward. And you don't want to reach a really high level of English and then think back of your experience and be really sad because you didn't enjoy it, or laugh at a mistake you made or how you struggled understanding a particular movie or book. To avoid this burnout, try switching up the way you learn English. Don't only rely on English textbooks, grammar exercises, or memorizing long lists of vocabulary. Really try and take advantage and use the methods I've taught you today, and try doing stuff that you enjoy in your native language in English instead. For example, if you really enjoy video games, change the settings from your native language to English. Or if you enjoy cooking, try looking up recipes in English instead of your native language. Even watching TV shows and movies in English is still studying as you're exposing yourself to the language. But what I really want you to do is let go of the grammar books and the boring ways you were taught how to learn English at school, and instead enjoy the process and switch things up. If you're not having fun with it, then I'm sorry to tell you that it's unlikely you'll be able to achieve your English goals. So really try to be creative and do the stuff that you would in your native language in English. And I promise you that you'll become fluent in English in no time. I really hope you enjoyed this video and find these tips useful. Feel free to leave a comment with your favorite method for improving your English at home. Now, if you want my personalized help in improving your English, then consider applying for my advanced English coaching program. If you're someone who wants more accountability and learn the most effective way to achieve your English transformation, then consider clicking the link in the description and first pinned comment to book a free consultation call to see how I can help you go from frustrated and limited to super confident and fluent, so you can take advantage of all the amazing opportunities that English provides. So if that's something you're interested in, click the link in the description or first pin comment to see whether you're a fit for the program. Now you've learned how to improve your English by yourself at home for free. Your next step is to learn some words and practice your pronunciation. So check out this playlist here with some lessons to really hone your pronunciation in English. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more free lessons just like this. And if you found any of the tips helpful, make sure you smash that like button so I know whether to make more videos like this in the future. And with that, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!